promoting a healthy environment. It's the air we breathe. Clean, safe water. Responsible management of our natural resources. We protect and restore for a sustainable future. Environment matters.
A quarter century of bringing volunteers together to help clean up the Canal River. The Great Canal River Sweep celebrates its 25th year. Plus,
we're not living in the 1970s where urban renewal, you just go in and knock everything down and try to build up new. What we're doing is we're taking what we have, turning it into new uses and celebrating that.
One West Virginia community is showcasing its successful brownfield redevelopment projects while looking to the future. Hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of Environment Matters. I'm Greg Adolphson with the West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection. The DEP wants to hear your thoughts on ways to make the above-ground storage tank program as thorough and effective as possible. The agency released an initial draft of the emergency rule that will be filed later this year, most likely in December, with the Secretary of State's office. This document builds on the temporary interpretive rule filed last week, adding much more detail about the agency plans and expectations going forward.
The normal process would be we would draft the rules, even in an emergency rule. We would draft the rule, we would file it with the Secretary of State's office, and that would begin a 30-day public comment period. In this case, I believe from the very beginning, I believed and have committed to a much more open process in the drafting stage of the rule, which means rather than waiting until the end of what we're doing in order to get comments, we're seeking input now for a couple reasons. One, probably the most important reasons, is we're not experts in this, in how tanks operate and how they are used. So it's fairly new to us. We believe that we could get a lot of input that would be valuable in helping us understand the business end of tank use in the tank industry so that we could draft a better rule. And then second, in light of what happened at the Freedom site and the public interest that's out there, which really was the impetus behind Senate Bill 373, we felt like that the citizen groups and other people who don't necessarily own and operate tanks might want something to say about it. So we just decided from the beginning to have a very open process and to allow as much input and to solicit as much input as we could get.
You can read the rough draft of the emergency rule by visiting our website, dep.wv.gov. It's located on the above ground storage tank page. Just click on the link on our homepage. Members of industry groups, environmental groups, and members of the public who asked to be identified as stakeholders in the rulemaking process earlier this year will meet on October 1st to discuss the draft rule and ways to make it more effective. Any other members of the public who would like to offer suggestions on ways to improve the rule can contact the DEP at one of the addresses on the screen. You can email your comments to wvdeptankrules@wv.gov or mail them to the following address on the screen: West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection, Public Information Office, AST Emergency Rule Comments, 601 57th Street Southeast, Charleston 25304. Comments must be submitted by October 24th. Work is expected to begin soon on the demolition and removal of the 4 remaining above-ground storage tanks at the Freedom Industry site. Those tanks are currently used to store possible contaminated stormwater and groundwater runoff from the site, but will be replaced by temporary Baker tanks. Tank demolition at the site began in July with the removal of 10 steel above-ground storage tanks, including Tank 396, the source of a leak of chemicals MCHM and PPH which spilled into the Elk River back in January. That spill contaminated the water supply for roughly 300,000 people in 9 surrounding counties. DEP inspectors will remain on site as they have throughout the demolition process to continue to monitor the situation. Brownfields are abandoned or inactive industrial or commercial properties where redevelopment is complicated by the presence or potential presence of environmental contamination. The DEP's Office of Environmental Remediation works with property owners and developers through its voluntary remediation program to identify and address potential contamination at a site. The agency also partners with the West Virginia Brownfields Assistance Centers to help facilitate those redevelopment efforts. The DEP's Sarah Sharp joins us now with more.
Greg, that group held its annual conference recently in Huntington, where community leaders traded ideas and looked for creative solutions to problem properties in their area. Brownfield sites can range from abandoned homes and small businesses to sprawling industrial complexes. According to U.S. EPA estimates, there are more than 450,000 brownfield sites across the country, and they cause a whole host of problems.
First of all, it's an eyesore, and everybody in the community knows it. And that weighs those communities down. It causes just hardships in the community. I mean, you can ask the police here. It's the old dilapidated house. It's the old abandoned site. That's where they get the calls with the drug issues and the other crimes that are going on. So if we can take those and redevelop them into something, housing, industry, commercial business, recreational space, green space, anything positive, it brings up the community. So it's not only economic development, but it's community revitalization, if you would.
George Carrico is Environmental Manager at the West Virginia Brownfields Assistance Center at Marshall University. The center at Marshall, along with the Northern Brownfields Assistance Center at WVU, was created in 2005 by the West Virginia Legislature to help communities with the redevelopment of brownfield properties throughout the state. The group provides training and technical assistance and helps with grant proposals and other ways communities can leverage project funding.
Now, there's all kinds of opportunities out there waiting. I think we're just really scratching the surface right now at opportunities that are out there waiting us.
One advantage to brownfield redevelopment: a lot of the infrastructure, things like roads and public utilities, are already in place at many of these unused sites, but that's not the only thing.
It helps us to preserve our green spaces so people can enjoy nature, as West Virginia is well known for, and it also allows us to use areas that already have the infrastructure in place and be able to put them back into use again. We've had several places where you've taken an industrial facility that was out of use for, as much as several decades, and they've been able to bring in new businesses, create new jobs in the area, and still be able to have the green spaces in the area surrounding it. So it's a great program. It's a proven program. The folks that come through the voluntary remediation process, we've issued over 135 certificates over the life of the program.
This year's host city, Huntington, is a good example of a place where brownfield redevelopment has been a key part of the city's revitalization plan. The DEP's Mike Huff has that story.
Downtown Huntington is a lot busier place these days. The centerpiece of that resurgence, Pullman Square, is a former brownfield site. The retail, restaurant, and entertainment complex created 600 jobs and helped generate interest in surrounding properties, which, in turn, attracted more investment and development.
What we want to be able to do is show folks that we're serving as an example of how you can rebound, is that there is a point where you reach a low and the community comes together and responds, and that's precisely what we've done. And the beauty of, particularly with the Brownfields conference, we're able to show how we're using that which has been here for a while, went into disrepair, has been refurbished and renovated and brought to new uses. We're not living in the 1970s where urban renewal, you just go in and knock everything down and try to build up new. What we're doing is we're taking what we have, turning it into new uses and celebrating that.
And part of that celebration is the new Marshall University Visual Arts Center. 8 programs from the university's School of Art and Design now call the former Anderson Newcomb department store home. The 6-story building just across 3rd Avenue from Pullman Square was built in 1902 and had been vacant for many years, falling into disrepair. But thanks to a $13 million renovation, more than 300 students will bring a creative force into the city center. Another arts-related project is coming to the city's Westmoreland neighborhood. The former Corbin Garment Factory, empty for more than 10 years, is being converted by the nonprofit Coalfield Development Corporation into apartments and workspace for artists. But probably the most prominent undeveloped brownfield site is located just east of downtown and Marshall University, the shuttered American Car and Foundry plant. An industrial site dating back to the 1870s, ACF once employed as many as 1,600 people making rail cars for railroads all across the country. The plant has been idle for years, and the city would like to see it redeveloped.
You have three, in essence, parcels of land that come to about 60 acres that were all industrial properties. There's remediation that needs to be done on the property to clean it up. But we're actively looking at strategies as to how we can gain control of the property and tear down the rusted out steel. It hasn't been productive for several years, and it will prove to be a shining example how you can take that which has decayed and in essence been pronounced dead and given it a revitalized life.
But not all of the city's efforts are focused on large commercial and industrial properties.
Brownfields is not always the remediation that we see of old industrial properties. Brownfields could just as easily be going into neighborhoods and clearing out those areas that have gone into disrepair. And it gives the individuals who live in the neighborhoods a new sense of life and purpose for their neighborhood. It helps revitalize the area, very much like if you would take a tree and prune it, and you see it looks bare, and then all of a sudden after later in the season you see just how lush it is because you've pruned out some of the dead space and it's allowed it to grow into a much more vibrant being. That's the very nature of neighborhood revitalization.
In Huntington, I'm Mike Huff for Environment Matters.
The West Virginia Legislature passed the Voluntary Remediation and Redevelopment Act in 1996 in order to encourage the cleanup and redevelopment of brownfields across the state. To find out more about the West Virginia Brownfields Assistance Centers, visit their website, wvbrownfields.org. For Environment Matters, I'm Sarah Sharp.
Thanks, Sarah. The DEP is now on Twitter. The agency plans to use the social media site to share news and information with the public. Followers can also expect to see facts about the agency and the state of the environment, as well as upcoming events and volunteer opportunities. You can follow us at DEPWV.
One of our goals at the DEP is not only to promote what we do to help our environment, but also to educate the public on how they can help preserve the environment as well. So any tool that we have to get that message out there, we'll definitely take advantage of. And Twitter is one of those many tools, and we're glad to be using this now and having this extra tool to get the message out.
Our Twitter account joins our other social media platforms, YouTube and Google+. Several agency programs like Adopt a Highway and the Youth Environmental Program also maintain Facebook pages. Coming up, volunteers take to the banks of the Kanawha for the DEP's annual Great Kanawha River Sweep. Plus,
at some point in time, these kids will be making decisions about our natural world and our resources, and if we can cultivate a love and an enjoyment and an excitement and an understanding of the natural world, and in particular the resource of water, I think now is the perfect time to talk to them about this.
Having fun and learning too? We'll visit one of Project Wet's most popular water festivals. Those stories and more when Environment Matters continues.